Hello, my name is Billy Atkins, and I'm the Director of Campus Safety for St. Edward's University. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to view this presentation on the responses you can take if you find yourself in an active shooter situation. Please be aware that this presentation only focuses on the recommended actions you should take if you're involved in an active shooter incident. We have a more detailed presentation that covers mitigation measures that would help to reduce the possibility of an event like this occurring. This other presentation also discusses the law enforcement and campus response to an event, plus information on how we will communicate with the campus community. Information on how you can request that presentation will be provided at the end of this training. Before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that this is a sensitive topic, and I want you to know there's nothing graphic in the presentation. However, if you become uncomfortable for any reason, please don't hesitate to end your session. Avoid, deny, and defend are the 3 steps we recommend an individual take if you are in or near the area where an attack is taking place. So how would you know if you're in a location where an attack is occurring? Well, you would probably hear gunshots, hear people screaming, or see people running. If this is the case, you will more than likely know about the event before any formal notification is sent. Please note, these steps are not necessarily intended to reflect a natural progression of an event. That is, you may not have the opportunity to avoid or deny. You may have to go straight to defend, depending on your particular situation. The concept of avoid is very straightforward. If you can quickly and safely leave the area where the attack is taking place, then do so. Again, this is an action you take if the shooter is in your immediate area or building. As you exit the area, be aware of your surroundings. This means looking not only left and right, but also up and down. You should always assume there's more than one shooter, which is why you want to pay attention to your surroundings. As you are exiting the building, warn others and encourage them to exit as well. Once you've safely exited the building, keep going. Put as much distance and objects between you and the building as you can. Even go off campus. Go to a location where you know there will be lots of people, like the Home Depot on Woodward Street or the HEB on Old Tour. We don't recommend getting in your car and driving off campus, as this could potentially interfere with or otherwise slow down arriving law enforcement personnel. One way to prepare yourself to take this action, if necessary, is to make it a habit of looking for, and when possible, exploring the exits in every building you frequent, both on and off campus. Learn where exits are and also where they empty out to. For example, you may want to avoid an exit that empties into the interior of a building where an attacker may be. It's not uncommon for us to unconsciously, out of habit, exit buildings the way we enter them. That's why you can better prepare yourself to use this tactic by training yourself to be aware of all exits in a building. Think of airlines and how they stress in their safety briefings the fact that in an emergency, the closest exit may be behind you and not how you entered the plane. The benefits of this tactic are twofold. One, and the most obvious, it gets you out of harm's way. Also, there is no real evidence of shooters chasing people. While shooters may move around the inside of a building, they very rarely exit one building to go to another site. If circumstances prevent you from avoiding the attacker, then you may need to deny the attacker access to you. The concept behind this tactic is not necessarily to create an impenetrable barrier between you and the attacker, but to deny the attacker easy access to you and others. Essentially, if the attacker comes to a door they can't readily open, then you'd like them to move along. We're going to discuss a variety of ways you can secure a door, but there are some things to keep in mind regarding this tactic. 1, even if the door to the room you're in has locks or you've otherwise somehow secured it, barricade the door also, like they've done in the top photo on this slide. Use whatever is available to you to block the door. That way, even if the attacker opens the door, it will slow them down and they will have to remove the obstacles to enter. This can create a vulnerable moment for the attacker to be open to attack from you and others with you. 2, if you can, cover any windows to prevent the attacker from seeing in the room. And 3, turn off the lights and silence your cell phone. Essentially, you'd like the attacker to think they've come to a locked, empty room. If you have called or texted 911, they may ask you to keep the line open, but otherwise make sure your phone is silenced. Finally, once you have secured the room to the best of your ability, you should hide behind large objects and in all cases, stay low and out of the line of fire. You should note, in an event like this, you can't physically stop someone from leaving a location like a cafeteria, residence hall, or library. But you should make it very clear that they are putting themselves and others at risk if they do so, and that once a door has been secured, it's going to stay that way until directed otherwise by law enforcement. To prepare yourself to implement this tactic, you should take some time now to consider how you would secure some of the rooms you frequent on campus, places like offices, classrooms, meeting rooms, etc. The benefit of this tactic is that it obviously prevents the attacker from gaining ready access to you. Other benefits include the fact that even if the attacker spends some time trying to get into a secured room, you've effectively delayed their attack. This means they're not actively harming others, and it also means that law enforcement has more time to respond. Also, as mentioned earlier, this tactic may disrupt an attacker's plan, making them less effective and also making them vulnerable to counterattack from others. Now let's talk about some specific actions you can take to secure a door. When we think of denying an attacker access to our location, the first thing we think of is doors. Make it a habit to start examining the doors in the locations you frequent, both on and off campus. The first thing you want to do is to determine if the door opens inward or outward. A quick and easy way to determine the direction the door opens is to look for the door hinges. If you can see the door hinges, then the door opens in your direction, in this case, inward. But we'll talk about some ways to secure both inward and outward opening doors in this presentation. Next, you need to be aware of what type of locks, if any, are on the particular door you're trying to secure. It could be something very familiar, like a regular deadbolt lock seen here. Or it could be a mechanism within the door, sometimes called a mortise lock with buttons, or in this case, a toggle. You should become familiar with a lock's mechanisms. So in this case, this is what the mechanism looks like when the door is locked, and this is what it looks like unlocked. You should make it a habit to examine doors and their locks for the locations you frequent. Now I'd like to discuss some different types of doors you may encounter and ways you can secure them. So this is my messy office at St. Edward's. I've locked my inward opening door, but then I also barricaded it. I've taken my 2 office chairs and braced them between the door and my desk. See how one chair is pressed against the door and the desk is pressed against the other chair. Something that I can do to further brace the door is to lie on the floor And with my feet, I can push on my desk where I've circled in red and exert even more pressure against the door. Also, by lying down on the floor, I've taken myself out of the line of fire if the attacker attempted to shoot through the door or wall. Consider your office, how it's laid out and furnished. Are there items you can use to help secure the door, such as a filing cabinet that can easily be tipped over to block the door? How about a sofa or couch that can be moved? As you consider how to barricade a space, it's important for you to test out your plan if you can. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you planned on using a piece of furniture only to find out you can't move it. Here's another quick example of how you can barricade a door. This is a meeting room in the Ragsdale Center with an inward opening door. Also, you should know this door has a mortise lock, like we discussed earlier. So in addition to locking the door, I've taken the table and placed one side against the width of the door, and with the chairs in the room, I've lined them up from the other side of the table all the way to the opposing wall. This will further prevent the door from being open. Occupants in the room should crouch down low, out of the line of fire, along the wall under the TV display. If, in this scenario, the attacker tried to get through the glass on the door, we've made it very awkward for them, and they'd be open to attack from the occupants in the room as the attacker tried to get through. You may encounter a door like this. That is an inward opening door with a door closer and no lock. Doors like this are not uncommon, especially in restaurants. The following short video will describe some steps you can take to secure this type of door.
So here's an example of a door with one of these door closers, and it doesn't have any lock on it. So what we're going to do with the door shut is we're going to take our belt, we're going to anchor it against one arm on the door closer. Pull it tight, and then we're going to start to wrap the belt around the arms of the closer, and we're going to pull it tight as we're wrapping it. And after we've made a couple of rotations around the arm closer, we're going to run the belt through the two arms and continue to wrap it around the arm closer, pulling tight. If we have the time, we can tuck it in. Otherwise, we just tuck it up there, and you'll see the kind of hold that it'll put on the door. So you still want to barricade this door if you have any objects in the room. If you don't have objects, one of the things that you can do, get down on the floor and brace the door like this with your feet. So that takes you out of the line of fire and gives you further pressure on the door. Also, if you have more time and more belts, you can wrap additional belts around the arm closer.
Remember, always barricade a door. Don't just lock it. Also, if you don't have a belt, you could use a tie, a scarf, or even straps from a backpack to secure the door closer. Here's a classroom over at JVW with an outward opening door. In this case, the desks in the room are fixed to the floor and can't be moved. So I've taken something called the lashing strap, available at any hardware store, and wrapped it around the door handle and attached it to a fixed desk. We could also then pile additional furniture like chairs in front of the door. Here's another outward opening door. The goal in this case is to brace an object, here a table, against the entire width of the door frame, and then secure the door, usually the door handle, to the object. Just as in the previous example, once the door has been secured, you should barricade it with other furniture or objects from the room. Another option you may consider is something called a travel lock. Travel locks have grown in popularity due to sites like Airbnb. And as the name suggests, these are devices that you can use to help secure an inward opening door. This is just a sampling of the various types of travel locks that are readily available on sites like Amazon. All travel locks operate pretty much the same way. There are hooks on the device that go into the strike plate on the door jamb. Then you close the door and the device helps secure the door. The following video will demonstrate how to use one of these devices. Depending on the device you're using, travel locks can usually be installed in a matter of seconds. For example, this entire clip is 24 seconds long. That includes, in addition to me actually installing the device, me giving a demo of the door opening, me showing the device and where it goes in the door, and me working around the cameraman. Again, remember, even if you've secured a door with a travel lock, barricade the door if you can. With any inward opening door, you can also use things like door stops and 3-ring binders. We usually think of door stops as keeping doors open, but they can also be used to help keep them closed. Just like the other examples we've given in this presentation, if you plan on using door stops or binders, test them before you actually need to use them. These are just some other common items you could use to secure doors using the methods we've already covered. Things like scarves, ties, and belts can be used on door closers or to secure a piece of furniture to a door. In the case of belts, if you need something longer, you can link the belts together like we've done in this photo on the right. Finally, you can also use things like lashing straps, as we've mentioned before, cordage, or even large zip ties to secure a door with crash bars, as shown here. If you find yourself in a situation where you're not able to avoid an attacker or deny an attacker access to your location, you may have to defend yourself as an absolute last resort. It's perfectly reasonable for this to be a daunting thought and even upsetting for some individuals, and everyone should understand that confronting an active shooter is never a requirement for any non-law enforcement personnel. However, research shows that there is strength in numbers, and the survival actions taken by one person can have a contagious effect on others. If you decide to take this action, everyone should commit to fight for their life as aggressively as possible. When using this tactic, you should understand that your goal is to cause severe or lethal injury to the shooter. If there are 2 or more of you, quietly develop a plan of action in the event the attacker enters your location. Let's examine the photo on this screen. First, notice how the defenders are spread out. Don't huddle together in a situation like this. If you're grouped together, it makes you an easy target, while if you're spread out, it gives you options and makes it harder for the attacker to pick a target. Additionally, the defenders are near the door to prevent the attacker from gaining any type of advantage. The defender on the left side of the screen has a fire extinguisher, but notice they're using it as a club. Try to avoid discharging the contents of a fire extinguisher, especially if you're in an enclosed space, because this can cause as much confusion and discomfort for you and others as the attacker. However, these items are heavy and make a great weapon. It's hard to tell from this photo, but the defender in the red tie has taken a leather belt and wrapped it around his fist, which improves his striking power. The woman in the red blouse has a pot of cotton. Hot liquids make an excellent weapon, especially when thrown in an attacker's face. Finally, the defender in the yellow shirt is using the chair as a weapon. Other items that may be available to use as an improvised weapon may include things like scissors, letter openers, pens, metal water bottles, etc. Remember, if you're going to confront an attacker, you should be near the point where they will enter your location as shown in this photo. If you are close, you have a chance to fight. If you are far away, you become a target. And remember, this is not a fair fight. This is a fight for your life. People often ask what they should do in the event they are in a large open space if an attack like this occurs. This includes outdoor spaces like lawns or sporting venues, as well as indoor venues like cafeterias, auditoriums, or ballrooms. The tactics are essentially the same as shown on this slide and generally depend on your proximity to the attacker. As we've discussed throughout this presentation, there are actions you can take now that will help you should you ever find yourself in this type of situation. First, remain aware of your surroundings, wherever you are, either on or off campus. If on campus and you observe something or someone that appears suspicious or concerning, don't ever hesitate to call UPD. It's especially important that you call UPD if you become aware of someone making threatening comments or expressing any intent to take violent action. Develop a survival mindset, which could include taking a self-defense course. Make it a habit to start looking for emergency exits wherever you go. Try and identify multiple escape routes throughout the buildings you frequent on campus. Another good habit is to start examining the locks on doors in the buildings you frequent. Additionally, you should think in terms of how you barricade or otherwise secure a room if needed. Think about obtaining some lashing straps or travel locks to keep with you. They're small and fit easily into a briefcase, backpack, or purse. Consider taking a course in first aid. The university has sponsored several courses on campus called Stop the Bleed. These courses teach lay people how to respond to and treat an individual with a catastrophic bleeding injury. Finally, commit to regularly reviewing safety information such as this. You can rewatch this video or check out the safety information we have on the Topper Safe app under emergency guidelines. Review our campus safety webpage. We have summaries of what to do in situations like this on both locations. Thanks again for taking the time to view this training. I hope you found it helpful. My contact information is on this slide, and I invite you to reach out to me if you have any questions or if you'd like to discuss any aspects of this presentation in further detail. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, there is another more detailed presentation that is available for groups on campus in a live, online, or in-person format. If you're interested in one of these sessions, please just let me know.